It was a cold, stormy night when the shrill ring of my phone shattered the silence. The voice on the other end was trembling, almost inaudible over the crackle of the line. "There's been a break-in at your apartment," they whispered urgently, their words dripping with fear. My heart stopped for a moment before it began pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My mind raced with terrifying possibilities. Was my husband hurt? Was someone still there? I gripped the phone tightly, trying to steady my breathing as panic clawed at my chest. I forced myself to stay calm, reminding myself that panicking wouldn't solve anything. But deep down, I couldn't shake the dread pooling in my stomach. Something felt off about this call. It wasn't just the urgency in the stranger's tone, but also an unsettling sense of foreboding. As I paced back and forth in my dimly lit living room, another thought struck me. What if this wasn't random? What if it had something to do with him, my husband, whose secrets I'd suspected for months? Meanwhile, miles away, my husband was speeding through sheets of rain, his car fishtailing dangerously on the slick roads. His phone buzzed incessantly with missed calls from unknown numbers, each one lighting up the dashboard like a warning beacon. He glanced at the screen, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. The storm outside mirrored the tempest brewing inside him. Every unanswered call gnawed at his nerves, heightening his anxiety. Was it me calling? Or worse, someone else? Someone who knew too much? The weather seemed almost cruel, conspiring against us both. Lightning split the sky into jagged fragments, momentarily illuminating the chaos around him. Thunder roared so loudly it drowned out even his racing thoughts. Each second felt like an eternity, stretching thinner and thinner until reality blurred into a haze of fear and uncertainty. He muttered curses under his breath, torn between guilt and desperation. Whatever awaited him at home, he knew it wouldn't be good. Back at our apartment, I stood frozen by the window, staring out into the darkness. The wind howled like a wounded animal, rattling the glass panes violently. My reflection stared back at me, a ghostly figure caught between anger and despair. I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted justice. This night would change everything. Little did either of us know the real betrayal wasn't lurking in the shadows. It was already sitting right beside us. The moment we stepped into the apartment, an eerie chill enveloped us. The air was unnaturally cold, as if it carried whispers of betrayal and secrets long buried. The dim light flickered faintly, casting jagged shadows across the walls that seemed to twist and writhe like specters in the darkness. My fingers tightened around my phone, my thumb hovering over the emergency button for the police. Every fiber of my being screamed caution, but beneath the surface, a storm of emotions raged. Fear, anger, and something darker, more primal. I could feel my husband tense beside me, his breath shallow, his movements hesitant. Neither of us spoke. Words felt futile in the face of what awaited us. Then came the sound, a faint rustle, barely audible over the pounding rain outside. It emanated from the bedroom, soft yet unmistakable, sending a jolt through both our spines. We exchanged a glance, unspoken dread passing between us. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, we crept toward the source of the noise, each step creaking ominously on the wooden floorboards. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out even the relentless downpour beyond the windows. Each second stretched into eternity, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on us like a suffocating shroud. As we reached the doorway, I hesitated, gripping the doorframe with trembling hands. The room lay shrouded in shadows, its corners swallowed by darkness. But there, near the bed, I saw movement, a figure shifting awkwardly, their silhouette barely discernible against the muted glow of the streetlights filtering through the curtains. My heart clenched painfully in my chest. This was it, the moment of truth. Summoning every ounce of courage, I flipped on the lights, illuminating the scene before us. And then everything froze. Standing there, half-dressed and visibly startled, was her, the woman whose existence had haunted me for months. Her eyes widened in shock, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. She looked ridiculous, pathetic even, clutching a crumpled shirt to her chest. For a split second, disbelief clouded my mind. Was this real? Or some cruel trick of fate? But no, it was all too vivid, too raw. This wasn't just a thief or an intruder. It was someone far worse. Someone who had invaded not only my home, but also my life, my marriage, my very soul. I stood rooted to the spot, unable to move or speak, while inside me a volcano erupted. Rage surged through my veins, hot and searing, mingling with a bone-deep sadness that threatened to consume me whole. How dare she? How dare they? My gaze shifted to my husband, whose face had turned ghostly pale. He stumbled back, stammering incoherently, his carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of exposure. His betrayal was laid bare, undeniable, staring me right in the face. You... The word escaped my lips, sharp and venomous, slicing through the heavy silence. You knew. He flinched as though struck, his eyes darting wildly between me and the woman now shrinking into herself. No, darling, please let me explain. He pleaded, his voice cracking under the strain. But I didn't need explanations. I'd known for months. What I hadn't anticipated was seeing her here, in my own apartment, standing brazenly in front of me. It was surreal, grotesque, like stepping into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. And yet, amidst the chaos, clarity struck me like lightning. This wasn't merely about catching them, it was about making them pay. Get out, I said finally, my voice low but laced with steel. Both of you. She scrambled to gather her things, tripping over herself in her haste, while he gaped at me, stunned into silence. As they fled past me, I felt nothing. Not triumph, not sorrow, just a chilling resolve. Tonight would be the beginning of their end. The silence in the room was deafening, a thick, suffocating tension that hung between us like a storm cloud ready to burst. My husband stood frozen, his face pale and sweat beading on his forehead as he stared at me with wide, panicked eyes. His mistress, now exposed for the fraud she truly was, cowered behind him, her trembling hands clutching the edge of his shirt like a lifeline. But I wasn't looking at her anymore. My gaze was fixed solely on him. The man who had sworn vows of love and loyalty to me, but had betrayed me in every possible way. I've known about all of this for months, I said finally, my voice cutting through the oppressive quiet like a blade. It was cold, calculated, and laced with venom. But instead of confronting you right away, I chose to wait. I took a step closer, my heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor, each sound echoing like a countdown to Judgment Day. I wanted to catch you red-handed, to make sure there could be no excuses, no lies left to hide behind. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His usual charm and composure were shattered, replaced by sheer terror. He knew he was cornered, and so did I. This was my moment, the culmination of months of planning, patience, and pain. You think I sat idly by while you played your games? I continued, my tone dripping with disdain. No, I hired a private investigator to follow you, to document every meeting, every lie, every betrayal. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small envelope, tossing it onto the coffee table between us. Photographs spilled out, capturing moments they thought were hidden. Clandestine dinners, stolen kisses in dimly lit alleys, even text messages exchanged late at night. Each image was a dagger aimed straight at his heart. You see, darling. I spat the word like it left a bitter taste in my mouth. I didn't just want to expose you. I wanted to destroy you. His knees buckled slightly, and he staggered back, gripping the armrest of the couch for support. Why are you doing this? He whispered hoarsely, his voice barely audible over the pounding rain outside. Because you deserve it. I snapped, my voice rising with fury. You don't get to walk away from this unscathed, not after everything you've done. You humiliated me, lied to me, and treated our marriage like some kind of joke. But tonight, everyone will know the truth. I leaned in closer, my eyes blazing with determination. This isn't just about us anymore. Your family, your friends, they'll all see you for what you really are. A liar, a cheat, and a coward. When this is over, you won't have anyone left. No one will trust you, respect you, or care about you. And that's exactly how it should be. For a brief moment, the room fell silent again, save for the relentless drumming of rain against the windows. Then, as if realizing the gravity of my words, his mistress let out a whimper, breaking the spell. She turned to him, her expression a mixture of fear and desperation. What is she talking about? What have you done? She demanded, her voice shaking. He ignored her, too consumed by his own panic to respond. Instead, he looked at me, pleading silently for mercy. But mercy was something I had long since stopped offering. Every ounce of hurt, anger, and humiliation I'd endured over the past months fueled my resolve. Tonight, I would take back control, not just of my life, but of his reputation, his future, everything he held dear. You brought this upon yourself, I said softly, almost tenderly, though the cruelty in my smile betrayed my words. And now there's no escape. The scene shifted to my restaurant, a place that had once been a sanctuary of pride and accomplishment, but now felt like a stage for the final act of betrayal. The air was thick with tension, despite the elegant chandeliers casting soft light over polished tables and pristine white tablecloths. I sat across from them, my husband and his mistress, their presence an affront to everything I had built here. My eyes narrowed, sharp as daggers, boring into theirs with unspoken accusations. Every glance, every movement they made seemed calculated yet clumsy, their guilt hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. She tried to appear composed, sipping her water delicately while forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But her nervousness betrayed her. She kept glancing around the room, her gaze darting toward the door as if plotting an escape route. Her hands trembled slightly against the stem of her glass, and I could see beads of sweat forming on her forehead beneath the weight of my stare. She wasn't just afraid of me. She was terrified of being caught, of facing the consequences of her actions. And rightly so. My husband, on the other hand, was a picture of forced nonchalance. He leaned back in his chair, attempting to project confidence, but his fidgeting fingers gave him away. His attempts at small talk were stilted and awkward, each word laced with desperation. This place looks great, darling, he said, gesturing vaguely at the dining area. You've done amazing work. The compliment fell flat, swallowed by the palpable hostility between us, but I wasn't fooled. Neither charm nor empty words would save him now. Beneath the surface calm, My mind raced with plans, schemes designed to expose their true nature once and for all. This dinner wasn't just about confrontation, it was about retribution. As the owner of this establishment, I had access to every detail, every ingredient served on these plates. And tonight, one dish would seal their fate. Would anyone care to try the special shrimp? I asked sweetly, my voice dripping with false hospitality. Both sets of eyes widened slightly, though for different reasons. My husband nodded eagerly, perhaps hoping to appease me, while she hesitated, her lips parting as if to protest. Of course, you must taste it first, I added, placing emphasis on the last word. After all, quality control is essential. I signaled to the waiter, who brought out a steaming platter of shrimp, glistening under the warm lights. Each piece looked perfect, almost too inviting. What they didn't know was that this dish carried more than flavor. It carried judgment. I watched intently as they exchanged uneasy glances, neither willing to take the first bite. It was a silent battle of wills, each waiting for the other to succumb to paranoia. Finally, unable to resist any longer, she reached for a shrimp, her hand shaking visibly. She took a tentative nibble, then froze, her expression unreadable. My husband followed suit, chewing slowly, his face pale as he awaited some invisible verdict. They were trapped, ensnared in their own web of deceit. Whatever poison they imagined might be lurking within those shrimp, it paled in comparison to the venom coursing through my veins. The atmosphere in the restaurant shifted from tense to chaotic in an instant. After taking a deliberate bite of the shrimp, I paused dramatically, my hand clutching my stomach as if struck by sudden, unbearable pain. My eyes widened in feigned shock, and with a gasp that echoed through the room, I collapsed onto my chair, slumping forward as though life itself had been drained from me. The patrons around us froze mid-conversation, their faces pale with horror. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Is she all right? Call an ambulance. What happened? My husband leapt to his feet, panic etched across his face. What's wrong? What did you eat? He stammered, his voice trembling. Meanwhile, his mistress sprang into action, her movements frantic yet calculated. She glanced nervously at the platter of shrimp, her mind racing to cover her tracks. With exaggerated concern, she knelt beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. Are you okay? Should we call for help? She asked, her tone dripping with false sincerity. But beneath her mask of worry, I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes. As chaos erupted around us, I allowed myself a moment to savor the perfection of my plan. Then, with impeccable timing, I sat up abruptly, brushing her hand away with a dismissive flick. A cold, mirthless laugh escaped my lips, cutting through the noise like shards of glass. Relax, I said, my voice sharp and commanding. It's just laxatives. For a split second, time seemed to stop. Her jaw dropped and color drained from her face as realization dawned. The patrons murmured among themselves, confusion giving way to disbelief. My husband stared at me, his mouth agape, while she stumbled backward, her composure crumbling entirely. You tricked us? She stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Oh, darling, I replied, my tone laced with mockery. You underestimated me. Did you really think I'd let you poison me without putting up a fight? I stood slowly, straightening my posture as all eyes turned to me. But don't worry, I added with a smirk, pulling out my phone. I've already called the police. They'll be here any minute to deal with your little scheme. Her knees buckled and she collapsed onto the floor, tears streaming down her face. Please, no, I didn't mean it. He told me to do it, she cried, pointing frantically at my husband. He recoiled, shaking his head in denial. Don't drag me into this, he snapped, his voice tinged with desperation. By now, the entire restaurant was in disarray. Waiters rushed to contain the situation, while diners whispered furiously, some filming the spectacle on their phones. Through it all, I remained calm, relishing the sight of my enemies unraveling before me. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice, served piping hot on a silver platter. As the police officers led her mistress away in handcuffs, my husband's face turned ashen. He stumbled forward, desperation etched into every line of his trembling body. Listen, darling. He began, his voice cracking under the weight of his guilt. You have to understand, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't mean for things to spiral out of control. His words hung in the air, pathetic and hollow, like a drowning man grasping at straws. I cut him off with a sharp laugh that echoed through the now silent restaurant. Every eye was on us, patrons frozen mid-bite, waitstaff lingering by the kitchen doors. But I didn't care. This moment was mine. Save your excuses, I spat, my voice cold enough to freeze fire. You don't deserve forgiveness. Not from me, not from anyone. You betrayed me, humiliated me, and tried to destroy everything we had. And for what? For her. I gestured toward the door where his mistress had just been dragged away, her sobs still faintly audible in the distance. He opened his mouth again, but no sound came out. Instead, tears welled up in his eyes, though whether they were genuine or another manipulative ploy, I couldn't tell. And frankly, I didn't care anymore. Enough, I said firmly, turning to address the stunned crowd gathered around us. Let it be known that as of today, I am filing for divorce. Everything he owns, the house, the car, even the watch on his wrist, belongs to me. He will leave here with nothing but the shame he deserves. The room erupted into murmurs, some gasping in shock, while others nodded approvingly. My declaration felt cathartic, like finally breaking free from chains I'd worn for too long. As two officers escorted him toward the exit, his head bowed low, I called after him one last time. And don't bother coming back here ever again. You're no longer welcome in my life or my restaurant. At the doorway, he hesitated, glancing over his shoulder with a look of pure devastation. Then, without another word, he disappeared into the night, leaving behind only the echo of footsteps and the shattered remnants of our marriage. The woman who had once been his accomplice was already gone, arrested for attempted poisoning and conspiracy. Both of them would pay dearly for their betrayal, not just legally, but emotionally, as they faced a future devoid of trust or redemption. Standing there amidst the chaos, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. The storm had passed, and I emerged stronger than before. The night was cool, the city lights shimmering like scattered diamonds beneath the velvet sky. Standing on the rooftop of my restaurant, I let the gentle breeze sweep across my face as I gazed out over the sprawling metropolis. This moment, this quiet triumph, was mine alone. I had faced betrayal, humiliation, and deceit, but instead of crumbling under their weight, I had risen stronger, sharper, and more determined than ever before. Those who dared to underestimate me had learned a lesson they would carry for the rest of their lives. Never mistake a woman's silence for weakness or her grace for submission. My husband and his mistress thought they could outwit me, that I would crumble at the first sign of treachery. But they were wrong. So profoundly wrong. Their arrogance blinded them to the depth of my resolve, to the fire that burned within me. By orchestrating their downfall with precision and poise, I proved not only to them but also to myself that intelligence and resilience are weapons far deadlier than brute force or deceit. They walked away broken, stripped of dignity and trust, while I stood tall, unshaken by the storm they tried to unleash upon me. With the dust settled, I turned my focus inward, to rebuilding my life piece by piece. My restaurant became more than just a business. It became a testament to my strength and ingenuity. Word spread about the scandal, drawing curious patrons eager to see the place where justice had been served cold. The dining room buzzed with admiration, and soon enough my establishment flourished into an icon of perseverance and brilliance. Every reservation, every dish served reminded me of how far I'd come and how much further I could go. As I leaned against the railing, a satisfied smile played on my lips. Below me, the city pulsed with life, its energy mirroring the newfound purpose coursing through my veins. I no longer felt the sting of betrayal or the ache of loss. Instead, I embraced freedom, a liberation forged in the crucible of pain and revenge. Looking up at the stars, I whispered softly, to no one in particular, "This is only the beginning." Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.